Well, hey everybody, here's three cats. I hate to interrupt this view. I'm going to try to get in between them, but hey, we got a lot more spoilers what to look at. I saw a lot of people on yesterday's video saying like, hey, are spoilers done? No, actually, they run until the 25th, so we got a couple more days of these things. Oh, and by the way, what's up, Wizards? It's Dev, SBMTG, along with all of his friends. We like it a magic. We all play together all the time. Ziggy, tear up the couch as much as you want to, I guess. It's whatever. Anyway, today we have like 21, something like that, cards to look at from this set. They just keep coming, and there's a bunch of really, really good lower rarity stuff today. There's a bunch of rares and mythic. We'll get there. Don't worry. There's nutso stuff to look at, but I think that a lot of the value today is at common and uncommon, so let's get into it. Let's take a look at Pestilent Siphoner along with Stinghive Master and Ravenous Necrotitan first here. Siphoner is just 2 mana. It's 1 and a black for a 1/1 Phyrexian insect with flying and toxic 1. Pretty simple little guy here, but I think it's going to get the job done a lot in these like black-white or black-green toxic decks. In the limited environment, I think it's pretty decent. Also, cool wings, but let's move on to Stinghive Master, which is 3 mana, 2 and a black for a 3/2 Phyrexian Warlock. Always love to see a Warlock. This guy's got Toxic 1, and when he dies, you create a 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature token with Toxic 1 in. This creature can't block. So you get one of these little dudes when this guy dies, and that's actually pretty good. You know, if this is the second card of the day, then we're looking at some pretty decent stuff. I mean, he won't see any standard play or anything, but in limited, again, in these toxic decks, he looks pretty decent. But Ravenous Necrotitan, or at least that's the translation we have right now, is 4 mana, 2 and 2 black for a 6/6 Phyrexian Horror with Corrupted. Now, when it enters the battlefield, you got to sack a dude unless an opponent has 3 or more poison counters. It's a little boring, you know, it's a 4 mana 6/6, I mean, I guess there is that, but having to sacrifice a dude sucks a little bit. I will say in limited, you've got like 1/1 dudes that can't block anyway, so perfect sacrifice fodder in limited for this guy, and I guess that translates to standard, but I'm just pretty sure you got better stuff to do with 4 mana than a vanilla 6/6. And yeah, that's right, in case you're keeping score, we've reached the point where a sort of better Jism Djinn just is like one of the first cards of the day, and we kind of pass on it and don't say much about it. I know, how did we get here? It's ridiculous, but let's move on to Phyrexian Atlas and Fleshless Gladiator. If I'm in Phyrexia, I'd like to know where I'm going. Let's take a look at it. 3 mana for an artifact that you can tap to add a mana of any color, but it also has Corrupted. When it becomes tapped, each opponent with 3 or more poison counters loses a life. A nifty little rock for limited here, but I think that's where it stops. The most noteworthy thing about this card is it has really rad art. I could also stop here to make a long-winded point about the many ways that they're setting up toxic decks in limited to actually push through damage when they can't get the rest of the poison that they need. So this is a card that does that, but so is Fleshless Gladiator. This is 2 mana, 1 and a black for a 2/2 Phyrexian Skeleton, like that creature type. It's got Corrupted. You can pay 2 and a black to return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. You lose 1 life, but you can only do this, of course, if your opponent is 3 poison or more. So this is cool. You know, we see a creature like this in every set or two at this point, but I like this guy. You can do the ability at instant speed. It only costs you 1 life. You know, again, yet another way of sort of pushing through damage through removal and wraths and stuff like that for the Corrupted deck, but only in limited. I don't think this thing sees too much standard play, even though it can come back from the graveyard somewhat easily. I still don't. I mean, how many hoops are you going to jump through for a 2/2? It's just better ways what to use them slots in it, bruv, but is all I'm saying. But let's move on here to Infectious Bite and Serum Snare, along with Ambulatory Edifice, all 3 kind of removal spells. Infectious Bite is 3 mana, 1 and a green for an instant. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. Each opponent gets a poison counter. Each opponent gets a poison counter. That's kind of neat, right? But this is just a bite at instant speed, just strictly better, sort of Ravenous Bite thing. Instant speed is great. I love bites rather than fights. Everybody knows that. Just a good, solid little card, man. Like this is limited playable, if nothing else. Definitely a good piece of removal there. But, however, maybe standard. Like if the toxic deck wants to be green, and all signs point to a yes on that front. But I could definitely see them packing a few copies of this. It's super sweet that like you're not in any risk of losing your guy to this removal spell. And it gives them a free, you just get a free poison count. Let's go. Let's play 4 copies of this. I don't know why I'm so jacked about this card all of a sudden. It's infectious. Let's move on to Serum Snare, though. This is 2 mana, 1 and a blue for an instant. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. If the permanent had mana value 3 or less, proliferate, why don't you? That's a cool little bonus. I'm not sure this beats out like Fading Hope, which costs literally half price and arguably has a better bonus on it, but Fading Hope is creatures. This is non-land permanents, which I do think matters a great deal. But, you know, there's almost always a card in like every single set. At 2 mana, bounce a non-land thing, right? And plus gravy. And this is just delicious gravy. That turkey gravy you only get once a year, right? You have it at Thanksgiving. It really just comes in a little McCormick pack or something. But it's so good, but you only get it that one time a year. It's delicious gravy. That's how I feel about this. But I like Ambulatory Edifice too, which is just a great name. It's 3 mana, 2 and a black for a 3/2 artifact creature. It's Phyrexian construct. Constructs are kind of important, but when it enters the battlefield, you may pay 2 life. When you do, target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. This is actually neat. It can just be like a vanilla 3 mana 3/2, which is not a good Magic card most of the time. But hey, it's an artifact creature. It's a construct for whatever that's worth. I'm sure it's worth something to somebody, but that's why I keep bringing it up. But one way or the other, this can just like snipe a thing when it ETBs. Like 2 life, who cares? That's fine, whatever. So I'm not sure that it's better than like Graveyard Trespasser, Gix, a bunch of other 3-drops and standard Phyrexian Fleshgorger. Let's keep going, right? With cards that are definitely better than this. But I wouldn't be surprised if this showed up in like best of 3 sideboards from time to time, just as like a 2 of in the mono black decks or something, because this can snipe soldiers and mono red dudes and stuff like that. There's plenty of X1s in standard that this is, you know, Thalia, you know, it doesn't cost any extra to cast this card with the Thalia on the table. It's a creature. So just like throw it down on turn 3, kill their Thalia. Is that good enough reason to sideboard this card? Like maybe, but I'm going to have to see it to believe it, right? I'm going to need some evidence for this edifice, but let's move on to Furnace Punisher and Exuberant Fuseling. I like both these cards, really, though. We're getting into the decent stuff here. Furnace Punisher is 3 mana, 2 and a red for a 3/3 Phyrexian Warrior with Menace. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, Furnace Punisher does 2 damage to that player unless they control 2 or more basic lands. Shouldn't be too hard for you as the mono red player to have a couple of mounts out, right? It's just probably never going to actually punish you, but against multiple decks in standard, it's going to punish the crap out of him. It's 3 mana for 3/3 worth of stats with an important keyword ability. It gives him some evasiveness, and it probably ends up doing like, you know, 4 damage to your opponent at least before it's all said and done in the right matchups. I'm not sure if it's best of 3 main deckable or anything like that, but I will say if these like 3-color just mid-range value piles end up keep staying the norm, then this could actually be like a pretty playable card in the main. But if nothing else, the sideboard, I think that this could do a pretty good amount of damage to your opponent, prioritize them to remove it rather than more important creatures, right? So I kind of like this little thing. But let's move away from the furnace, yet turn up the heat with Exuberant Fuseling here. There's just 1 red mana for a 0/1 Phyrexian Goblin Warrior with Trample, and it gets +1/+0 for each oil counter on it. And when it enters the battlefield, and whenever another creature or artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you put an oil counter on Fuseling. So that is an awful lot of words, but it's actually not a bad card. First of all, love that it's just randomly a goblin. Actually not a terrible card just because you can break like treasure tokens and make it bigger. That's actually super sick. Like, it doesn't get +1/+1, it just gets +1/+0. So you can't just swing willy-nilly with it, but eventually it might get to like a 4/1/5/1 on turn, 4/5, something like that. And you can make it part of your big alpha strike, but it's probably not going to do too much swinging in the early game. So again, just like Furnace Punisher, I'm not sure that it's destined to see play right now, but maybe someday. This is an interesting little Magic card. But Rustvine Cultivator's next, and oh my god, y'all, it untaps lands. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, it untaps lands. You know that means Rustvine Cultivator is just a single green mana for a 1/2 Phyrexian Elf Druid. You can tap it to put an oil counter on it, and you can tap it and remove an oil counter from it to untap target land. Oh my god, that means you can untap your Gea's Cradle if that's what you want to do. You untap your Tolarian Academy or just whatever you're doing, I guess. There's stuff that I guess you can do with this, but there's other creatures you could have already been doing that with. It's just, he doesn't, it's a 1-drop that taps for mana, but he doesn't tap for mana until like turn 3. And then he doesn't tap for mana again until turn 5. It's every other turn for your mana dork, and that's so lame. It's so lame. It's standard. It's a little bit lame. So I don't know about this thing too much, but I will say that you Commander players just love untapping them cradles because it's delicious. Now you've got another way to do it. It's pretty toasty. Also, yes, I am aware that Proliferate exists. I'm not contractually obligated to say it with every card with oil counters, but I feel like that's the case. Anyway, let's move on here to some other pretty ridiculously good cards. There's a bunch of them today. Let's look at Bladed Ambassador next, though. This, I feel like every other set we get like a new Seasoned Hallowblade or a Danto Vanguard, like a card like that. And this is this one. They're always decent. This is 1 and a white for a 3/1 Phyrexian soldier. It enters the battlefield with an oil counter on it. Look at that. And you can pay 1 and remove an oil counter from it to have it gain indestructible till end of turn. Hey, you knew it was coming as soon as I started describing some of those other creatures to you. Yeah, this costs some mana to make it indestructible, which is kind of poopy, you know. The other ones didn't cost mana. Vanguard, Seasoned Hallowblade, just like discard cards. So that's not good. Same thing with Guardian of Numenalia, which is in standard right now and also just requires the discarding of cards. So I don't love paying mana, and I don't love only being able to do this one time. But again, proliferate. So I'm just going to say that word and really nothing else. I guess you could do that, but it doesn't look like white has a ton of proliferate opportunities. Look at me going on about it when I said I wouldn't. Let's look at Tainted Observer next. I know it's a weird card to look at. The art is strange. It's 3 mana, 1 a green and a blue for a 2/3 Phyrexian bird, somehow, with flying, and it has Toxic 1. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 2. If you do, proliferate. So for one, I just kind of feel bad for whoever had to decide what creature type this thing was. You know, I feel like they commissioned the art first on this, and then later they're like, it's a bird? Sure. Like, whatever. What else is it? I don't know. It's a snake? Who cares? Honestly, the card is ridiculous. I don't think this sees a lot of standard play. I really don't. I want to be able to play like a 4-drop on my turn 4 after this, but this probably does demand like a really, really low curve, which I guess if you can put it together, maybe, possibly, goes really well with scheming what's-his-face from yesterday, the guy that kind of like double blood artist, he like drains for 2 whenever you proliferate. So he goes really well with this. You play a bunch of creatures, but obviously this gets like very mana intensive, like very fast. You probably only do this like once a turn, even if you're making tokens, because it doesn't say non-token, which is pretty great. You can also like flicker or blink creatures and pay 2. It's just whenever a creature ETBs, which is just a good line of text. It is. Now, I imagine in Commander, there's going to be decks that are able to generate all the mana that you'd ever need, close to or literally infinite mana, and just like abuse this. I know that there's probably some sort of ridiculous combo. Like Ashnod's Altar is an easy one, right? Because you play a creature, you can pay 2 to proliferate, so you just sack that creature to Ashnod's Altar, and you use that 2 mana to proliferate. But then you have to do something else to make it go infinite. I'm sure there's ways, but one way or the other, the card looks good. I'm pretty sure it's a little slow for standard. Even like the stats aren't very good. You don't want a 3 mana 2/3 flyer. Even with 2 like decent keyword abilities, you don't really want a 3 mana 2/3. You don't want to do it to yourself. So I think those days are gone. Those days are gone. Boom, boom, boom. What a wonderful time we used to have playing Magic. These days, you see a 3 mana 3/3 flyer, and you're like, what else does it do? I don't think it's good. So, this I'm not too sure about, but that is one heck of a triggered ability. So if you can abuse it, you can probably dooze it. Let's look at Trawler Drake next. This is just 3 mana, 2 and a blue for a 0/0 Phyrexian Drake with flying. Enters the battlefield with an oil counter on it, and it gets +1/+1 for each oil counter on it. So how do I get more, you might ask? Well, all you got to do is cast a non-creature spell, and you get an oil counter. Yeah, this is way up here. I know, it's a 3 mana 1/1 flyer, Dev. Why do you like this thing so much? It says non-creature spell, man. It's really good. And of course, you can proliferate, and that'll often put multiple counters on it because like you can cast a proliferate spell that is a non-creature spell, right? So that'll put an oil counter on it. And then the fact that you see what I'm getting at here? The fact that you cast a non-creature spell, you'll get an oil counter. The fact that you proliferate, you'll get more oil counters. So I imagine this thing gets really big, super fast, in limited or even perhaps in standard. I know, look, 3 mana 1/1 flyer. The turn it comes into play, it's not usually great, but I imagine if you untap with this in play, you can make it a 3/3 like super quick, and then if you untap with it again, continue, etc. So I don't know, like over the course of a game, if this gets to like a 6/6, does that seem like impossible? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just kind of excited by like these lines of text. It might cost a little bit too much mana, but if it costs any less mana, it would be busted. So I understand why it costs 3, and I'm still pretty excited about it. These are the cards that, remember back in the day we used to have budget. There used to be budget decks. These are the cards I would get excited about, and I guess I'm still not broken of that, which is good. I will keep my spirit forever. But let's take a look at Vat of Rebirth here. This is just a black mana for an artifact. Whenever another artifact or creature you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield. Put an oil counter on Vat of Rebirth. Then you pay 2 a black and tap the Vat to remove 4 oil counters from it and return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. You can only do this as a sorcery, of course. I'm gonna say, of course, they could have made it instant speed. That'd be really good. That'd be so good. This card's fine, right? I mean, it's the same thing as the red goblin dude we were looking at. This thing procs off of just like busting open treasure tokens and blood tokens and stuff. Seems at least okay to me, you know. And there's other stuff you can sacrifice guys, I guess that kind of works, but mostly I just want to be popping treasure tokens and stuff. And a card that works really well with this is like Big Score, you know, because you can say dump a large man into your graveyard, or a large lady, whatever, I don't discriminate. You can just dump a large being into your graveyard. And then with the Big Score, get 2 treasure tokens. You pop them 2 treasure tokens to help activate the ability. And look at that, that's 2 oil counters. Well, I guess, can you do that? Judge, I'm not actually sure, but if you pop those 2 treasure tokens, you'll get 2 oil counters on this. At least get you halfway there. I mean, it shouldn't take too much more work either before or after you cast the Big Score to actually get to activate this thing. But one way or the other, I could see just playing this with like treasure tokens and discard stuff and just like going off. And if you can do it more than once in a game, then it's probably just way better than the average Reanimator spell. So I want to try it out. A lot of people would say this card's chance to see in play is slim, but I think it's pretty vat. Let's move on though to Canker Bloom. Last uncommon of the day, but pay attention to this guy right here. This is 2 mana, 1 and a green for a 3/2 Phyrexian Fungus. Yay. Really coming with the creature types today. But the best part of the card is that you can pay 1 and sack it to do one of these things. Either destroy target artifact, target enchantment, or you can proliferate. Whew! Just what a 2-drop, man. I know that a lot of green decks in Standard don't have mushroom at the 2-drop slot, but I'm pretty sure they can find it for a fun guy like this. Just what a good card. You know, just a solid little man. And that's we love him. Am I patting? Is this? Where's my, okay, so the top of the card's like around here somewhere? Maybe. We'll figure it out in post. But anyway, yeah, no cap. I like this guy. Do you get that one? Anyway, really just a great dude. I was going to say I wish I had more puns, but I think that I've exhausted all my puns. Just kidding. I'm packed to the gills with puns. That's one more for the road. Anyway, let's move on to the rares here real quick because we didn't get a lot of them. I'm not going to lie. We didn't get a ton. I know that back there I may have said, we got a bunch of rares. There's a few, you know, but a lot of these I think are like pretty relevant, if not for Standard, then other formats, like the other format, the one that everyone plays. But let's move on and take a look first at Dragon Wing Glider. This, we'll talk about it in a second. This is 5 mana, 3 and 2 red for an equipment. It has 4 Mirrodin. An equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has flying and haste. Now you equip it for 3 and 2 red. See, back in my day, we had this card, called Volcanic Dragon. It is long since past any relevance of being a decent Magic card, but we used to love this thing, man. 6 mana, 4/4 flying haste. Let's go. After the Wrath of God gets cast or whatever, it's just a fine card. That card again is bad now. Don't play it. I guess a more recent example would be Goldspan Dragon, right? But this is just like the bad half of Goldspan Dragon, but how bad is it really? You know, it doesn't generate mana for you or anything like that. It doesn't double your treasure token, you know, mana. But what it is a 5 mana 4/4 flyer. And it's also a 5 mana 4/4 flyer even after they kill your 5 mana 4/4 flyer. So it costs a lot to equip. It does, but even if you just draw like a 2-drop off the top of your deck in the late game, you can suit it up with this and just immediately swing for who knows, right? Because it makes a 4/4 flyer when you play it. It does that, but maybe I play a 2 or 3 drop that has 3 power and then suddenly it's a 5 power haste flyer if I have the mana to bolt this on the same turn I play it. So even if I don't, you know, it still gets +2/+2 and flying. That'll win a game from time to time. I think that this is probably just like bomb status in draft, first of all. In limited, this is yes, you probably play this card. Looks great to me. But I mean, how many times have I said, how many have you internalized by now that 4/4 flyers can win games of limited? I think I've said it enough over the last 8 years, but this just makes 4/4 flyers. It's sick. So yes, especially in a set that has toxic and stuff, just having an equipment that gives the dude flying, it's probably decent limited, but I think this might be like sleeper status for Standard. Like it's close. There's probably better things you'd be doing for 5 mana. It's a lot of mana, but I wouldn't be surprised if this glided right into a deck or two, but we'll move on to a card that I definitely like less than this. Why did I order it the way I did? I guess because I know that there are other people in the world that'll like this card. Probably more than Dragonwing Glider. It is an interesting card too. Anyway, Tamiyo's Logbook. That's our next card. This is 3 mana, 2 and a blue for an artifact. You can pay 5 and a blue and tap the stinking thing to draw a card, but the ability does cost 1 less to activate for each other artifact you control. So again, this is a day of cards that don't say non-token on them. And just want another card like that. This doesn't care if it's treasure tokens or blood tokens or clue tokens or food tokens or blah-de-blah-de-blah. It's just any old dang little artifact, which is just cool. It's actually pretty cool. I mean, kind of lame because you want to pop your treasures to activate it, but then it costs more to activate. It's a little backwards, but still. I think that it's cool. I think it's cool. I don't think that it's worth like skipping your turn 3, 4 in standard to play this thing. I worry about that on a couple of today's cards, but I'm not sure that it's like super standard playable. But like in Commander, where you have a whole table full of artifacts swarming around and they're all yours, then this only costs a blue mana to activate. So 3 mana, pay a mana to draw a card, it's probably fine. Probably at least fine. So I could see it seeing like, finding a home in a deck here or there, but maybe I'm not excited about it. But again, I recognize there are other people out there who are like, have you guys seen Tamiyo's Logbook? That card looks good. So I know this one's for you. Now we got to see the blue Dominus today. This is Tecuthal Inquiry Dominus, 4 mana, 2 and 2 blue for a 3/5 legendary Phyrexian horror with flying. If you would proliferate twice instead. You can pay 1 and 2 blue Phyrexian mana, remove 3 counters from amongst other artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers you control. To put an indestructible counter on Tech, Inquiry Dominus, or TID, we sometimes call them. But this doesn't actually, I wish this looked better to me, but I will say that you can take counters off of pretty much anything. You can just drain a Planeswalker completely to keep this guy alive, which is kind of neat, actually. But I think that he does cost a lot for not the best stats or anything like that. The thing about him that I'm not ignoring, I swear to you, I know the thing that's important is that first line of text, not the flying, obviously. It's the, if you would proliferate, do it twice. That's sick. That's probably a very good commander. That just is a good commander. Is there already a proliferate commander? Somebody tell me. But if there's not, or even if there is, I imagine this is your new one in your proliferated EDH deck. So go hog wild there, cuz. But I'm not too sure about the standard environment, which is where I make my home. So I want it to be a good card so bad. But I'm not clear on this one, bub. But there could be some sick tech with Tech. We might do a deck tech on Tech eventually. It all depends on what we figure out. But let's move on to penultimate card of the day. Yes, it's another blue card. Let's look at Iker Moon Gauntlet here real quick, which a lot of people are losing their freaking minds over. This is 3 mana, 2 and a blue for an artifact. Planeswalkers you control have 0, proliferate, and -12. Take an extra turn after this one. Why is that line of text on the card? Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, choose a counter on target permanent. Put an additional counter of that kind on said permanent. So this looks like a card for the big format. What's it called? Everybody plays it. Commandeer? I think that's it. I'm pretty sure that's it. But again, it's a card you got to basically skip your 3rd turn to play in standard. Now, let's say that you're in best of 1 or something, or even best of 3, but you're playing against mono red, and they went first. So you play this on turn 3 and don't affect the board state in any other way. And then turn 4, the game ends. So I'm just not, I want cards like this to be good. I swear to you that I do. I'm not trying to be a little spoil sport, but I love the card. I really do. I wish that Magic was this. I should play more Commander. It is kind of good looking in a Super Friends deck, obviously, And I'll say this too. It's an artifact. It's a non-creature spell, so it's kind of interesting in multiples. You play the first one, and then the second one you play procs the first one. You put counters on stuff. And then when you play non-creature spells, you get to put 2 counters on stuff. So maybe, but that's 6 total mana and 2 turns wasted. So I'm pretty sure you just steamrolled, but maybe not. I mean, I hate to be so negative, I really do. But I'm just trying to be realistic here. Everybody, I do think if you can set up a decent board state, maybe keep the board clear, a couple sweepers here and there, whatever, in your Super Friends deck, then maybe you can find a slot for a couple of copies of this. Because obviously, if you get like 2 Planeswalkers out, it starts getting It's completely righteous, right? I mean, what are you going to do about it? you got to do something, because now your planeswalkers can proliferate and put counters on all your planeswalkers themselves included. They can just take extra turns sometimes, and you can put more counters on them to help ultimate them really quickly. That's what this is probably for, is helping your planeswalkers ultimate like super fast. But you have to take turns off. You have to play this, then you have to play a planeswalker. And then you still have to have a bunch of cards in your hand to proc this like 2-3 times in the same turn. But here's the most positive thing I can say about this card. And I think it's a pretty big plus in the card's favor for standard playability, right? Is that if you get this down and a planeswalker and you have open mana, you engineer that situation somehow. I have a planeswalker or two. I have this and I have open mana with cards in my hand. That's going to be harder than it sounds. In case you find yourself in that situation, then suddenly if your opponent tries to kill your planeswalker somehow, targeted removal spell, something like that, or they just attack into it. Well, now, if I play a removal spell out of my hand to kill one of your attackers, planeswalker gets bigger. So that messes up your combat math. That's great. If I play a counterspell on your Fateful Absence because you tried to kill my planeswalker or whatever, well, now not only do I keep my planeswalker, but he gets more loyalty. So I could see that actually being like a kind of a hopeless situation for an opponent that finds themselves in precisely that situation. But it takes a lot of engineering and a little bit of luck on your part to actually keep the board clear long enough to enact this plan and all that. So and still have cards in your hand to cast and proc the thing, but I am being too much of a stinker here. I think I'm being too much of a pragmatist. And sometimes, as I've said with other cards today, you just got to look at the fun sides of cards. And I'm trying to look at all the tech. And here's what you do is you do this, but no, this is really probably just a card that you have the time of your life with in Commander. Why don't we focus on that? It's good there. I'm pretty sure not many people play Planeswalkers in Commander. So is it even for that? Who's it for? I guess it's for everyone, because everyone is kind of collectively saying how amazing it is today. And I feel like the little guy in the corner, like, it's actually not, I don't like peanut butter and jelly. I do like peanut butter and jelly. That's a bad analogy, but still, I feel like that guy, and I'm sorry to be that guy. It's fun. It's a fun card. Have your fun. It's Magic, the Gathering. But anyway, let's move on to the final card of the day, I'm pretty sure. Got to reload Mythic Spoiler or whatever. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the last one of the day so far. Let's take a look at Phyrexian Vindicator. Why don't we? If you thought people were going nuts and bananas, trail mix over the last card, you haven't seen anything yet. Phyrexian Vindicator is 4 white mana for a 5/5 Phyrexian horror with flying. If damage would be dealt to Phyrexian Vindicator, prevent that damage. When damage is prevented this way, Phyrexian Vindicator deals that much damage to any other target. Phyrexian Obliterator. This is a sick little guy, man. There's already a mono white deck in standard, and it's on the same spot on the curve as Wandering Emperor, but I'm pretty sure I can kick everything else in that deck at 4-drop out of the way, so I can play this. Drop kick it out of the way. Sarah Paragon? Who's that? I don't know. Let's play this. Seems good. I mean, yeah, it gets blown up by an Infernal Grasp. It gets blown up by a Go for the Throat, and these are things I know. We all know, but I also don't care. You know what other 4-drop gets blown up by those same 2-mana cards? Sheoldred, most important card in the format. Obviously good Magic card, man. I mean, you basically almost have to play it in mono white, although, I mean, we play Invokes. We play Invokes in 2-color decks. What's stopping us from playing this? Those are your 4-drops right there. It's 4 Sheoldred, 4 Wandering Emperor, 4 this. I'm playing 12 4-drops. I don't care. I'm just playing. Screw Phyrexian Obliterator. I know I could be playing that card. I don't want to. I actually think it's an interesting call, which card is actually better. I think that Phyrexian Obliterator punishes you way more for blocking it, but this still punishes you pretty hard for blocking it. And it's tough to block, you've got to block it or it's going to kill you. And you can't really swing into it either because it's going to kill you. So I just don't know really how to solve this beyond removal spell, but you gotta have it. It's a good looking card, man. And I guess we started the video with this, so we'll end the video with this. Cool wings. So let me know how you felt about the takes this time around. Just let me know how you feel about all the stuff today, all the crazy uncommons, and it was a good day. But hey, maybe you thought it was a terrible day, full of poop. So let me know if that's the case down there in the comment section. We'll try to talk you down. But anyway, that's all I've got for this one. Just, feedback. Let me know in the comment section area down there. The whole place for it. But aside from that, just like the video if you enjoyed it. If you didn't enjoy it, like the video. It's fine. Either way, it's fine with me. And subscribe if you haven't done it yet. I'm trying to get to 150,000 subscribers. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to get to 127,000 subscribers, and I think I'm only like 80 away. So like, come on, man. Like, if you haven't subbed yet, let's get that push to 127. We're gonna get there, lads. It's almost time. And ladies, and lasses. But anyway, that's it for this one. Just do all the stuff YouTube wise and beyond. Go to twitch.tv/spmtgdev if you want to see me play with some of these new cards when it comes out. And also we'll be doing a probably review the entire set in one stream thing. So if you want to see that, come on and check it out. And of course, if you want to support the content around here, go over to patreon.com/spmtg or hit the link in the description. I've been putting a little bit of bonus content, cut stuff from these spoiler videos up on Patreon this season. If you're interested in that at all, it's just $1 to join. But to be honest, it's just ramblings, the ramblings of a madman. So I guess if you want to see that, it's $1 a month. But anyway, that's all I've got for this one, everybody. I'm finally done with the self-promotion. I hate it as much as you do. Anyway, I am Dev from the place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Make sure you spread love and be kind.